Hey, what's up guys, it's Apollo Uchiha here, back with another part of What If Naruto Was the 5th Hokage. If you haven't, please check out the next part of What If Naruto Was Turned Into a Girl. I have already uploaded it yesterday, and if you haven't, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel as well. And without further ado, let's begin our video. With Naruto and Jiraiya later on in their hotel room. Naruto was in his sealed form, as he liked to call it now. He just finished telling Jiraiya about his encounter, or his spying on Orochimaru and Tsunade encounter, and Jiraiya looked very serious about this. Alright Naruto, thanks for telling me that. Now I know to stay on guard around Tsunade, Jiraiya said with a frown as Naruto looked up at him curiously. What do you mean, Sage? Naruto asked as he couldn't think of a reason to be on guard around her. Orochimaru most likely came with an offer she'd be hard pressed to refuse. If so, and we encounter her like we must, she'll try to kick me out of the gang. Knowing Orochimaru like I do since the beginning days, he'll probably promise to bring back Dan or Namaki back to life with the use of that jutsu the nine them created. I'm just not sure what she'll do in the end, but I'll be on guard at all the times. Jiraiya said, and Naruto stared, going through the scrolls. Naruto eventually found a scroll which had a kanji for second on it. He started reading through them until he got to one of the only ones he hadn't practiced yet. The jutsu name was the reanimation jutsu. It was the scroll of the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju. As he went through the scroll, he found about its countermeasures, hits and seals, and cancellation of the jutsus. It was this Naruto and Jiraiya read as more insight to the technique. Jiraiya knew Naruto had gotten this scroll and many other scrolls from the Hokage's vault in Naruto's office. The personal ones of Minato and Kushina were in the blood vault behind Minato's picture in the Hokage office. They had gotten in a few others from the Shinobi library before going to the main gate back when they were in the village. So, that's the thing he used to bring back the Shodai and Nandaim against Sarutobi sensei. Jiraiya said. Naruto had a deep frown at the technique. It left so much to be desired. Yeah, and Sarutobi sensei used Minato's wrapper that seal again. Why does this say wrapper? Sorry about that. Minato's reaper that seal jutsu to seal Orochimaru's arms from what I read in the report the Anbook gave you. It seems that all four of the previous Hokage are unreachable now. Jiraiya said as he gazed at Naruto through the corner of his eyes. Naruto had a feral grin on his face as he continued to look through the technique. Maybe not. Just maybe. Naruto said quietly with a smirk in his voice as Jiraiya face-palmed himself. Great. He gave the brat an idea, and knowing the kid, he'd run until it was complete or either die trying. So anyway, Orochimaru would claim to have that power, but as you read, it forces the revived to obey the users. Knowing him, he'd have Tsunade heal his arms and then kill her with them, and then be at full power to destroy Konoha. Except this time around, the only ones to stop him would be me and Kakashi together, and even then, he'll have reinforcement at his beck and call. Jiraiya said as he rubbed his temples. From all the problems and situations that were running through his mind just thinking about it, and this is exactly why I didn't want to go hunting him down. The only person that would have a true chance of taking him down at this moment are the two Sanes, you and Tsunade, plus from what I read on the battle reports, he has his own hidden village at his command, so waging a war against him now would be so stupid, Naruto said as he sat on the floor of his hotel room. Don't forget, Orochimaru isn't stupid. He knows that if he attacks us now, he'll be put down hard. He learned that the village is still as strong as it was when he left, and he knows that almost all of his forces were killed along with the Sans ninja. Though they had far less dead, the point is that he won't attack us for a while. Hell, from what I know of that sealing jutsu, since he did it can't be healed by anything unless he perfected that jutsu. Jiraiya said in a serious voice without knowing or any showing of worry in his face, yet muttered the last part to himself. Naruto heard him anyway but decided to not prey on it for now. Okay, so what do we do now, Sage? Naruto asked as Jiraiya shrugged. You said Tsunade was heading for a drink, right? Well, then I know just where to find her. Jiraiya replied as Naruto nodded and created clones so that he could study the Hokage scroll so they could go search for Tsunade. He and Jiraiya both knew that they won't be able to convince her without a fight. They just hope that they'll be the one to come on top. Link break back in Konoha with Sasuke in his mind. Sasuke was mad, depressed, and a bit happy at all once. He was mad because no matter what he did, he felt that Naruto was passing him by. He was depressed because his brother Itachi had made him relive that night, just as he did before. Although he was still happy to be away from fangirls and Sakura. He wasn't mad at her or anything, but the girl was just depressed to cheer him up for some reason. He didn't need cheering now. He needed his friends to be just that, his friends. If Naruto was around, he'd understand that. But yet, Naruto wasn't around. Ever since that day when Asuma showed up with Kakashi, he hadn't seen Naruto at all, really. Yes, he tried to follow Naruto, but that ended with Heihachi taking Naruto inside. He was so angry right now that his friends weren't there for what he needed them to be. A person to tell him that he wasn't alone. Naruto had done that before. Sakura at least tried, but what he really wanted was someone who would believe in him no matter what, or just that. That's why, deep in a part of him that no one knew existed, he was jealous of Naruto. Naruto had everything he wanted. Hiruka, the old guy in the ramen shop, and those three kids. They all believed in him simply because he was determined and a hard worker. He had all that, but people only believed in him because of his name, so the civilians thought he was supposed to be naturally strong. They praised him like he was a god or something, but all he wanted was someone to believe in him, simply because he'd fight for what he believed in. He wanted people like the third Hokage had been there for him. He wanted people he could love like family. Maybe someday he'd get that. Back with Jiraiya and Naruto. So she's in there, Naruto asked as they had came out of town at night and walked to the best tavern in town. Jiraiya nodded as he walked in, but soon saw that Naruto wasn't following. He came back and found Naruto just standing there, squinting his eyes at the bright flashing sign as it having a staring contest with it. Kid, are you coming in or what? Jiraiya asked as Naruto turned a look at him while still in sealed form. More like runt form to me, Jiraiya mused in his mind as Naruto gave him a look. I am underaged. I can't go in there, Naruto exclaimed as Jiraiya sighed at the loudness of the boy's voice. Look, you're a ninja, so old enough to kill means old enough to drink, have sex, and gamble, right? Jiraiya set an arm around Naruto's shoulder as Naruto wouldn't try to turn back as he pulled the boy into the bar. Naruto grumbled under his breath like a child, but allowed himself to be brought in all the same. He walked curiously to why people would even go to taverns, but he'd never voice his curiosity. He and Jiraiya looked around and for Tsunade and found her immediately. There she is, but we're not gonna go over there just yet. We'll do some waiting, maybe 10 minutes. That way she'll get even drunker and we have a better chance, Naruto said as Jiraiya looked at him with a raised eyebrow. Okay, Naruto said slowly as they got to a table near Tsunade and Shizune so they could listen to them properly. Lady Tsunade, Shizune said quietly after 10 minutes of watching her master drink herself under. It was then Jiraiya sent Naruto a look as he turned around to face Tsunade and Shizune. Tsunade! Jiraiya exclaimed as Shizune jumped a bit as Tsunade looked over at him. Jiraiya! Tsunade said with a drunken hiccup as she squinted to see him properly from her blurry vision. Finally, we've been looking for you all over this place, Jiraiya said in an exasperated voice that Naruto knew wasn't faked much. They had been looking through every tavern until the one where he and Jiraiya had sensed her. They grabbed their plates and moved into the empty seats of the booth while Tsunade was too drunk to argue. Naruto could feel her subtly using her chakra to burn away the liquor in her body. He was sure Jiraiya could sense it too because the tortoise's eyes narrowed when she had started to. That meant the plan was out of the window now. Wink break. So what are you doing here, Jiraiya? I'm sure Orochimaru would be delighted to have a reunion since he's here too, Tsunade said as she stopped her probation jutsu. She knew if she used any more chakra, then she was sure even Jiraiya would sense it, so she wasn't able to burn away any more than half of the alcohol in her body. But even still, that was more than enough to keep her happily drunk. I figured as much. Listen, Tsunade. We need you to come back to the Konoha in order to heal a few people from mentally traumatization placed on them by a genjutsu. So, What do you say? Shura asked with a cheesy smile as he and Tsunade began playing cards like they usually did when they came across each other. I decline, Tsunade said cruelly as Jiraiya sighed. Well, at least they weren't trying to make her into Hokage. Now that have been an ordeal. Look, Tsunade, it's Kaka. Jiraiya started, but Tsunade erupted when she cut her eyes to Naruto, who was staring at her intently. Shizune narrowed her eyes at him. He was hiding his power well, but she had her lady, could sense it. Who's the brat you got with you? Tsunade asked as Naruto grew annoyed with the woman already. Hey, who do you think you're talking to, you ancient old prune? Naruto snapped back at her, standing up as Jiraiya grew a smirk and sat back down. This is Naruto Uzumaki, Jiraiya said as he deliberately spaced the name out for dramatic effects. It was as Tsunade and Shizune's eyes widened as they gazed at Naruto, who wore an annoyed expression. Shizune was shocked because of the QB, but Tsunade was shocked on a full another level, as she knew just about all the boys' family. Mainly because it was intervened with her own on both sides of her family. So this is the famous brat I've heard so much about in the last week. So you took down a yoga prodigy, huh? Well, it seems those tales were exaggerated. The apprentice isn't at all like your last one, Jiraiya. Look at him. He's a fool with a big mouth, and he's funny looking too. Tsunade said as she smirked when she saw him getting annoyed even more at her. Oh yeah? Naruto snapped back at her. As he finished his food, getting angry wouldn't help their situation. They needed her to come back to the village. Well, I'll have to disagree with you there, Tsunade. He already got the makings of Hokage. He only needs more training, and that can be done before we get back to the village, Jiraiya said as Tsunade eyed Naruto even more. After that clearly cryptic statement, what were they there to make her Hokage before this brat because he wasn't strong enough? So you want him to be a fool like the others, huh? Risking his life to protect the village? That's so foolish, just like Sarutobi sensei. He would have known better. What did he expect? Trying to be a hero at his age? Tsunade said as Jiraiya frowned at her with a stone face and Naruto clenched his feet under the table. He needed to keep his cool, thinking calm his thoughts. A fool. So foolish. Those sounds like great lines to use in the battle or life, Naruto thought as he calmed down a bit. Playing the Hokage count me out. It's a fool's game, Tsunade said nonchalantly as the other two adults watched her closely. There was, well, when all his calm and cool got kicked out of the window, you can say. When he flew up to stand at the top of the table. Calm and cool my ass. He just insulted my idols, my family and me all at once, Naruto thought as he rushed her, but Jiraiya calmly reached out and grabbed Naruto before he got to her. Though she'd never admitted, Tsunade was actually a bit afraid of what he might have done had not Jiraiya intervened. The boy was leaking only a bit of killer intent, but it was concentrated, pure and full of anger. What would happen had he mixed hate and made it stronger? She was a bit unnerved to find it. Let go of me, Naruto said as he tried to wiggle free from Jiraiya's grip. Stop. Calm down. People are looking. You're making a scene, Naruto, Jiraiya said as if rehearsed while Naruto rolled his eyes. He was more worried about his cards than the fact Naruto was causing a scene. Naruto could probably fight Tsunade, but that was going to be a short fight once she attacked the brat once. Let me go. I'm not going to just sit here while she makes a joke out of the old man and the others. No way, I don't care if she's a lady. I'll wipe the silicon sneer off her fake face, Naruto said as Tsunade narrowed her eyes at him. She practically felt the chakra building inside of him. Tsunade hopped out of her seat and got eye level with Naruto as they glared at each other. Are you challenging me, brat? You've got balls if nothing else. Let's take this outside, Tsunade said as Shizune frowned and protested against it. Naruto only growled at her. She was going down, and hard. Tsunade, you may want to rethink that. He's not your average brat. He's the Jiraiya started but was cut off again by Tsunade. She never listened to any of his good advices though. Quiet, Jiraiya. I'll show that brat why I'm one of the Sanis, she said as she and Naruto walked outside. Jiraiya only sighed as he followed after her with Shizune and Tonton also tagging along. Link break. Me, one of the legendary Son, is taking on a lowly snort-nosed cannon who wants to be a big shot. I should be ashamed of myself, Tsunade said as Naruto looked confused for a bit, then remembered what form he was in. He smirked at her and Jiraiya knew there'd be a trouble for that smirk. Who you call lowly? Naruto said as he flexed his hands while Tsunade raised her right index finger. See this? It's all I'll need to deal with you, Tsunade said smugly as Jiraiya sighed again. Oh, stop trying to show off. Look, Tsunade, maybe you want to take this seriously. Jiraiya was saying, only to be cut off with an irritated look on Tsunade's face. Be quiet, you pervert toad. It's all I'll need to take down this brat for nap. Don't make me punch you again last time. I did. Do you forgot? Tsunade yelled, only for Jiraiya to flinch and did a mock surrender. Jiraiya flinched as to Naruto as he saw the boy about to go through hand seals in a flash. Jiraiya had spent quite some time with Naruto now and he knew that Naruto will be going through ninjutsu. Naruto would flex his hands so they were loose and then he'd drop his arms to his sides so he could think about just what jutsu he wanted to use. Fine, but don't say I didn't try to warn you, Naruto. Go wild, but only with the basics. I don't have the cash on me to pay for the ruined streets of town. So try out something we haven't practiced as of late. Jiraiya said lazily as Naruto grinned widely after hearing that. Shizune was worried by that gain of events and Jiraiya's apparent confidence in the kid. What kind of basics could make them so confident? Jiraiya questioned in her mind as she gazed at Naruto and Jiraiya. It almost as if Jiraiya was confident in the boy, but Naruto was his name. Was going against Tsunade, Jiraiya's own old teammate. So why was Jiraiya so laid back about this? So what's the bet, Granny? Naruto said with a mirth as he knew she was a betting lady. Tsunade quickly grew more annoyed look from the brat. First of all, don't call me Granny. Secondly, the bet is that I can take you down with just this finger. If by some miracle you win, I'll give you my necklace. Tsunade said with a smirk on her face. She knew she couldn't lose to some bet behind the ear cannon. Shizune's eyes widened upon hearing that, but she was forced to shut up as Tsunade gave her a hard glare. Jiraiya sighed as he wasn't in a position to tell Tsunade's life story, mainly because he hadn't seen her teammate in years. He'd just stand to his side and see what happens, and then he decided. Fine by me, shall we begin? Naruto said with a smirk, and he stood straight up with Tsunade settled into a stance. Naruto raised his left hand to the sky as a single cherry blossom petal fell to it. The petal glowed as it transformed into a katana that was Sunbo Zakura. He unsheathed it and threw the sheath to the side where it turned to cherry blossom petals that blew away in the wind. He held the blade at a diagonal to his face as Tsunade shifted her stance. A sword. This brat doesn't look like that type, but he seems to hold it with a bit of grace and power. Not the Kenjutsu master intent, but still, with some practiced ease. Probably only a month or two of training with it, so Jiraiya got other skills to pass on, huh? Tsunade thought as she took a stance. Maybe that one finger thing wasn't such a good idea now. Nah, she could still whip the brat into submission. Naruto sped towards Tsunade, then with the slug princess eyes widening at the incredible speed. The boy was obviously using chakra, but still that speed for a Ganin was impressive. He already had his sword in mid-swing too. Shizune was screaming for Tsunade to move. Jiraiya was telling Naruto to not strike her down, and the pig was squealing out of horror at seeing her owner about to die. She ducked and dodged many of his swings, but then started striking out herself, trying to flick him or tap him. She finally ducked under a swing and flicked him on the forehead, sending him sailing through the air with his headband dissipating. Naruto backflipped to ready himself as he himself hit the ground. He continued to backflip until he was back at his original state starting point. He clutched his forehead and realized that she had used chakra in her strength, but not only that, she used medical ninjutsu to try and disrupt his brainwaves flows so he couldn't do his techniques or movements properly. So she's some kind of legendary medic to have done all that in one tiny flick. I haven't even got to disrupting movements functioning yet, but thank Kami-sama I did skip to dispelling it. Naruto thought as he smiled while placing a hand over his forehead, using medical ninjutsu basic to get his brain back to normal. He couldn't do it all the way, but he could at least move easier. An idea hit him as he saw the moonlight reflect on his katana. Tsunade watched him closely with narrowed eyes. What the hell is that brat still doing conscious? A guy like him should have been out for the count after I disrupted his brain function with lightning chakra. I wonder, is it the fox doing? Tsunade thought as she watched Naruto really ready himself for round 2. Link break, that was fun, but let's try this. I've been wanna test out my sword's ability for a while now. You see, it's kind of in my mind, and the sword does have a mind of its own, and it wants to take you down. Naruto said with a grin as he held his katana in front of him in a vertical place, parallel place to himself. Scatter, Senbozakura, Naruto said in a perfect monotone as his sword began to scatter into 1,000 slender, tiny petals, which then flew away from the hilt, leaving only the sword's handle in Naruto's hand. Tsunade watched as the petal flew around her or dropped from sky, glowing into the moonlight like a beautiful romancing. Jiraiya had taken out his notebook and was hastily writing the scene down to use in his next novel. Tsunade was about to laugh out loud at the stupidity of the technique, but then a petal grazed her cheek. She brushed it off, but looked down at her hand. In shock and horror, she used other hands to hold her cheek. She saw one thing in her hand as she dropped to her knees and began to hyperventilate blood. Tsunade whispered out as she shook violently while Shizune rushed to her side. "Tsunade-sama!" Shizune said as the petals flew towards Naruto and transformed back into the sword, before bursting into petals and dispelling altogether. It seemed this battle was a waste, and I really wanted to get some true experience in this fight. I guess the good I've heard about you was nothing more than simple words, Naruto said disapprovingly as he walked away. Towards the inn he and Jiraiya were staying in, he really wanted to test himself against one of the Sanis too. Jiraiya sighed as he glanced at Tsunade, shaking from being scared by Shizune, before sighing and following after Naruto. Just great. Knowing Tsunade, she'll probably take this out of control and challenge the kid without having a fight him properly again. And that's exactly how we'll get her. Jiraiya, you madman, you. Jiraiya thought to himself before grinning as a plan formulated in his devious mind. Hey Naruto, I'm going to stay out late tonight, so be sure to read those scrolls before going to bed. Practice, okay? Don't forget to practice. Jiraiya yelled out as Naruto waved back his hand to show he heard. Jiraiya grinned even more as he headed to the bar he just knew Tsunade would be at later. What better way to get over your losses to a brat like Naruto than to drink yourself under the table? Link break. Later with Naruto, he and his clones had finally finished reading and memorizing the scrolls of the first and second Hokage. Now all that was left was to read the advanced sealing scrolls Jiraiya had personally written. There was a knock at the door, and when he opened the door, there stood Shizune with textbook and scrolls in her hands as she gazed at him nervously as well. "Hey Shizune, what are you doing here?" Naruto asked as he already had a pretty good idea. He allowed her in and she settled in at a desk he wasn't using. "Well, Jiraiya-sama went out drinking with Tsunade-sama, so I thought I'll keep you company," Shizune said as she opened her medical textbook. Naruto raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "You studying too?" Naruto asked as he went back to his spot where his clones had dispelled right before he went to answer the door and began reading the sealing scroll again. Shizune nodded as she looked at him and gave him a genuine smile. Yeah, even when you're in high ranks, it never hurts to know it more, right? There are some things about the human body that I haven't yet learned, especially in regards with how to heal it. Sonata-sama has taught me all she can, but I still want to go further than that. Shizune said, and in confidence as Naruto smiled back at her and set aside his healing scroll. Well, let's help each other out a bit. You help me with medical ninjutsu, and maybe I can help you find a new healing technique. Because I've been thinking of creating other techniques that aren't like any other jutsu in the world. Naruto said to Shizune, but the last part to himself, as he was still thinking of it. Shizune smiled and nodded happily at the fact she now had her own informal student to pass her knowledge to. She could just die of excitement at the thought of being called Shizune Sensei. Alright, but that could take years, and I'm not sure you're ready for that kind of commitment, Shizune said, but her jaws dropped at 20 more. Naruto filled the room with smirks on their faces as the original had his hands in a cross seal. I think I'm more than ready, don't you? Naruto said, and with the biggest smirk of them all. Shizune blushed a bit, but then got an evil gleam in her eyes as she looked at all the Narutos. Well, that's just me not going easy then. If you can do what I think you can, then you'll master the bare basics of the medical ninjutsu before midnight. I can't wait. Well, we'll be at least Sonata-sama's level before no time. Just how many can you create at the same time? Shizune said in excitement, but then asked with a grin on her face that made their spines chill. About 200 at one time. Why? Naruto said a bit nervously as Shizune's grin grew wide. Because that's just perfect, Shizune said with a sweet yet cold voice. She cracked evilly as she began his training. Naruto was starting to feel like he may not have made the best decisions in his life yet. And with Kyuubi's senses snickering in his head, he knew he'd be in a world of pain. As this is where I'm going to be leaving this part of, guys. I hope you like this one, and if you do, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And this is Apollo Uchiha, and I'm signing out. Peace.